evening. Welcome to the March 29 Irish and Philippine breakfast meeting here in Lincoln County. Everybody push your button on. I forgot mine. We're in the Wyndham Town Council chambers. It is 6:30. If I could have a roll call, Mr. Superintendent.
Sure can. Kate Bricks.
Here.
Eric Colby.
Here.
Janie Cummins.
Here.
Diana Forslin.
Here.
Marge Cavoni.
Here.
Pete Hensler. Here. Don Dillon.
Here.
Megan Osgood.
Okay, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Not done.
Not done yet. Oh.
Anna Keeney.
Here.
Scott McLean.
Here.
We'll
get to you after that.
Yeah, really? Sorry. I apologize. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty, there are no adjustments to the agenda. Open it to public input, although I don't see any public, so I will close public input. One quick thing before we start on our presentation. There had been a suggestion that we possibly have the legislators come before us with what's going on with the budget that's floating around out there. And I talked it over with Dawn. I mean, I know Bill would be willing to come, and I hadn't spoken to the other ones. But Dawn is willing. He'll sit with me, and we'll draft, if everybody agrees on the board, and we will draft a letter of our concerns and our questions that we want posed to them. Because the feel was it would be better if they had something tangible in their hands that they could take to the legislature, rather than I sat with and try to remember what we all said. And if I can, so if everybody kind of agrees on that. I see a lot of head nodding, so I'm gonna. Okay, so I will tell. So we'll do that, and what we'll do is once we draft that, we'll send it out to everybody. Take a look, see, and then when we get the go ahead, we'll go. Sounds good. Okay, thank you all. So tonight is our third night of 18 cost center presentations, and first on our agenda is the principal of Jordan Small Middle School, Randy Crockett.
Thanks. I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back.
They don't do you both on the same night, no?
It's more exciting this way.
We're trying to keep him in with the right age group.
Okay.
So I don't get confused. Yeah. I'm not going to go over school goals because I shared those with you last time and then a few months ago. So the Jordan Small goal, big goal, was around the same content as the RES goal. I did want to call your attention to the back page of my cover sheet is a reworked belief statement that the staff completed a few months ago. And we moved some things around from our previous one and just tried to be more inclusive of some things we had learned since writing the belief statement a few years ago. So we did that through the lens also of the RSU 14 Principles of Proficiency-Based Instruction, which came out of Task Group 1 last spring. And so we use that as a lens to look at our own belief statement, and also to talk about things we learned in our work with resiliency and perseverance and helping kids with those things. So it's just it's got a few little twists and turns, and the format's a little different. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. And secondary goals were the same as RES around curriculum work, guiding principles, and habits of work, and those committees are ongoing. We have several members of the Jordan Small staff involved with that. So I guess I'll get right into the dollars and cents part. The only real increase of any significant amount that's not offset somewhere else is in the several lines in the library budget, and these are areas that haven't seen increases in several years. It's a total of $700. Some of that's for purchase of books. Some of it's for upgrading AV equipment that gets shared, like LCD projectors that are on carts that some rooms at Jordan Small do not have projection equipment, so those staff have to go to the library and sign carts out. And we do need to upgrade some audio speakers, not very expensive, things like that. So I brought that up a bit, not a lot. And there's also a line there for software, but this is basically site licenses, web-based programs that are not used in the district, but we might want to have a few licenses to target certain needs in math or reading, things like that. So we're using them now, but I had to kind of put them under my administrative area for dues and membership, which is kind of not exactly where they belong. So now they're in the software line. So $700 total increase in the area of library. And then the big adjustment to Jordan Small is some reduction in staff. So Christine, when she was here a couple weeks ago, talked a little bit about the standards-based teacher position that we have at Jordan Small. And that has been in effect for the last 2 years, well, this year and the past year. Last year, that individual had to do some full class teaching as well as being standards-based teacher. This year, the position, we've been able to do it just totally dedicated to interventions. So the person in that position has worked with every team to identify students that need more support and then develop plans to help them succeed in various ways. Some of it's, skill specific, math and ELA, and others is more around work habits and how to build in good study habits, and students that were struggling maybe in a certain content area because of organizational skills or not getting things up to date, and then they fell way behind. And so that position has been really helpful, and I think it has made a big impact for a few kids. But in order to come in with a little more fiscally tight budget, that's one area where we're looking to reduce. So there's a half of that position, 0.5, cut from Christine's budget. And that is going to be dovetailed with a reduction of half a position in regular ed. So if you look at the sheet that has the two columns from last year and this year, with the some of it's in yellow. You know which one? It's not a budget sheet. It's sort of part of the cover packet.
Cover sheet.
Yeah. You'll notice that it says 8.5 total staff FTEs 8.5. So there's a total reduction of one less staff member in its entirety, but half of that will come out of the curriculum budget, which is the standards-based teacher position, and then the other half lives in my budget. And my thinking here is to have an individual who will teach basically 2 math classes in the 7-8 grade span, and then the rest of the day will be devoted to being our lead on interventions and working with the teams of teachers and working with the kids that need that support. It's going to be a little harder to schedule it and make it all fit. As you notice, we've got a decline in enrollment. We're projected at 180-ish for next year. We're at 190 right now, more or less. If you look back at last year, you would see we're about 198 at times, 196. So we've had this gradual decline. And the reason the half-time position, or the half of the position, will be targeted to math is that in order to offer a geometry class for advanced 8th graders, that takes up one period of one math teacher's day, even though it's a relatively small group of kids. In order to be able to offer that, I need a person there. And also on the opposite end of math, in terms of kids who have not met all the standards they should have by the time they hit 7th grade, needing a class that's more focused on interventions and filling those gaps. So that's the plan for that individual, or some combination of individuals, to come up with the one full staff reduction. And that's all the major components to changes anyway. Pretty much everything else is still in place, and
This is just a curious question.
Yeah.
But does the number of kids needing intervention outweigh the number of kids needing geometry?
Yes. But geometry is only available to kids who've already taken algebra, which means they took algebra as 7th graders. We also have the algebra class open to 8th graders. So there's really 3 levels of math by the time you get to 8th grade, which also then sets you forward for what you're going to be able to access in high school. Yeah, geometry we usually 6 to 8 students usually is what it runs at. Interventions vary almost monthly. There's probably 30 kids that have some kind of plan in some degree. It might be short term and relatively small, and it might be long term and relatively complicated. So.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Just to follow up on Eric, it's kind of concerning that we have to get rid of that because that seems critical to prepare students in general, but also to transition into high school. And we've heard a lot of things, and this is not you, I mean, it's just that they're getting to high school and they're struggling because they're not where they need to be. And so, and I realize this was all part of the big kahuna of chopping and all that. I guess I would like to know if that standards-based piece were to be reinstated, how much that would help. And of course, you don't have that answer. If that standards base that you're losing could be reinstated, how much would that cost?
Well, it'd be half of we use a placeholder figure of around like 60,000.
So it'd be around 30,000.
Yeah, around 30,000, and that's in Christine's budget.
The back of my mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
The dilemma also is that it's very hard to hire part-time people and keep them.
Yep.
So, I mean, I found that with finagling with art, and music, and applied tech, and health, and so forth. And so, my concern would be if you replace half of it, then what? You might find somebody who's qualified. You might not. You might keep them for a year.
Because the other half is in Christine's, right?
Right. So
really,
if we had a full-time standards-based teacher, I still got a 0.5 cut that I then have to figure out. Find somebody who's willing to work half days, and there might be somebody great out there. It's more of a gamble. I feel that try to not have the person there every day or all day. It's just harder to maintain.
Just to be clear, that 60,000 placeholder, that's just strictly salary, right? It doesn't take into account
No, it's salary and benefits.
salary and benefits.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a little higher now if you looked at.
income.
Yeah, I believe Don uses Masters 5 as his. Is that right? And then some estimate of what the average insurance. It might be 65 now. But I could get that answer for you.
I just get concerned when we dismantle interventions that are so critical to student achievement.
If he's not, you still have the intervention piece.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to limit the options
Okay.
and the flexibility. We've done various different ways to try to build an in. So we used to have an ed tech position that was for interventions. That was somewhat helpful, but not the same. And then, a few years ago, we came before you, and Mr. Haddock was part of that presentation, and we talked about, really, we don't have Title I at the middle school level, and how to come up with a response for that. So that's where that all started.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have anything? Oh, listen, you got off easy.
Thanks. You're way ahead of schedule.
Run.
I know, it really isn't. Okay, next on our agenda is for technology. Bob Hickey.
Thank you. Well, this evening I've got some supporting documentation I'll pass around in a little bit. I just wanted to briefly go over the budget. There's not a lot of change from last year. There's one large project under the regular operating budget for MacBook Airs for grades 4 and 5, and then aside from that, there's $250,000 in the capital budget for switch replacement and upgrading of the fiber backbone. And this is to reinforce the network as we move the students into more and more relying on the technology in the district. Some of it is quite aged and needs replacing. So, just spot checking down my budget. I'll just probably highlight the larger areas that are somewhat of interest. There's like fringe benefits that went up, looks significant, of $15,000, and that is retirement. My department is non-union, so we're not eligible for Maine State retirement, so more folks in my department are utilizing the retirement match, so that's increased significantly. Lease purchase has gone up $20,898 over last year, and so some leases were paid off, and then this is the offset for the year 1 of 4 if the MacBook Airs are approved for 4 or 5. There's overall an almost $21,000 increase there. Software licensing and software annual fees, those two lines, you can see they're roughly the same size at roughly $40,000 a piece. One went up, one went down. It's a recategorization of software from one line to another, so no big change there. Internet connectivity, that has gone up a little bit, and we have to pay what's called a consortium fee. So we get internet through Maine School and Library Network through the state, and we used to spend roughly $30,000 a year on getting our own internet connectivity directly from Time Warner. And through this consortium, they pay the bill, get the E-rate money, and we get a much discounted rate. So we're just slightly over $3,000 our cost rather than the $30,000 we used to. Prior to us joining, there was no cost to local districts, and then, due to falling off of the local taxes for phones, they needed to make up the difference, so they imbue a charge on the local district, but it's still 1/10 of what we paid, so that's not bad at all. Technology-related hardware has fallen off largely. It's a huge decrease of $32,000 because we're able to pick up a lot of those expenses in the capital line. So where ordinarily would be in the operating budget, we would buy technology-related hardware there. We're not so much. Also, we're scaling back our use of the VDI desktop. We have 250 seats, but they're underutilized, so we're going to scale back to 100, use the existing servers, so that's why the decrease in technology-related hardware. And the transfer out is covered by the increased cost of laptop insurance. We've gotten hit pretty hard. We've had a lot of damage over the last year, and as we get more and more Macs in the district for things, breakage, things like that, water damage, those aren't covered by the warranty, so there's an increase there. So if there's any questions on that part?
On that last one.
Yes.
On the laptop and the transfer out money.
Yeah.
Now I know we charge the kids pay for the insurance thing.
Yes.
And is that just paying for the insurance, or does any of that money, can that go towards paying for things that are not covered under the insurance? That makes sense.
I'm not quite
Does it cover the policy?
Thank you.
This money, does it cover the policy?
The $50 that parents pay to cover the insurance on the laptop.
This money covers our increase in premium due to increase in breakage, and then also if a family buys the policy, then it costs them $25 or so, and then for each additional breakage they get a deductible. But the deductible and a lot of times the policy doesn't really cover the damage, so it's to help mitigate our offset. And so when insurance covers it, they don't do that for free, so the following year our costs go up, premiums go up, and hence this goes up.
So after all the parents have paid, and we got to cover this amount of money for breakage.
Right. We try to get a break even, so we try and anticipate increase in losses. So we're not trying to make any money off this. We're doing our best working with the insurance company, Jeffermet, to get it a net zero. And so, needless to say, you get more machines, higher end, newer cost, and more capability. Well, they cost more, and when they break, that costs more. So
Now, are these all related to one particular school? Are these all at the high
that's
school?
district wide.
Or is this district wide?
The last line you're talking about, the
Yeah.
insurance, yes. Okay. So I will pass these detail sheets out.
So software is software, so you carry all the security licenses, like for the exact license and all on your budget, or bills?
Well, Bill covers exact things that are facilities, so heat, exact cameras, that comes out of Bill's. Then there's also some software that comes out of Christine's budget if it's directly curriculum related. So like the Microsoft licenses, Microsoft Office, or the operating system, those kind of things come out of mine. So there's that, and I won't deluge you with too much paper, but
Well, Bill, Bob, what would a stipend look like in your department?
well, that's a good question. I'm not on microphone very well. So for my department, there's only one person who gets a stipend, and that's Bob Aslin, because he's on the teacher's contract. And in addition to that, BC stipends come out of my budget. So
What is a BC?
a BC is a building coordinator,
Oh, okay.
so it's the teacher who does the first line of technology. My printer doesn't print, I need toner, I need help with that type of thing.
Are these in there?
So just real quickly going over these sheets. The one with the yellow denotes the breakdown of which student has which machine and then the age in years. And I've intentionally highlighted in yellow the machines that are really old. So we make this plea for the MacBook Airs for grades 4 and 5, and it affects a lot more than just 4 and 5. It affects the K3 range as well, because the machines that are currently in 4 or 5 would be rolled back, and they're like getting to be 4 and 5 year old PCs, and the MacBooks, the old MacBooks that we bought for $48 are very old. But even some of those are in better shape than the netbooks that the primary school in particular has. So the folks at the lowest level desperately need technology. So we're hoping to move forward with the 4 or 5 MacBook Airs to have MacBooks, similar machine from grades 4 through 12, and then roll back existing inventory to buy us more time to move that purchase cycle back towards the lower grades. So you can see a lot of these are getting 8 years old, the MacBook Airs. Some of the PCs that we bought are 4 and 5 years old. They're getting older. So if there are any questions about that. Okay, so there's that. And then this is not directly budget related, but it is budget concern related, because everybody's concerned about the end of Milty. So this is my synopsis from what I've learned so far in my dealings with other districts, that they're moving from a 4-year, roughly $254 a year program, which is slightly over $1,000, and that included wireless, to a new 3-year, $200 per year for $600 over 3 years instead of over $1,000 over 4 years. And also, this $200 per seat scenario does not include wireless currently, but there is a lot of talk that the state says that they're trying to pull together something from another pocket to fund wireless to support the schools, and nobody knows what that's going to look like, how well it will be funded, how thorough it will be, and hence that's why we have money in the capital budget to support wireless. We don't plan on upgrading any wireless in either middle school or the high school anytime soon, but we desperately need wireless at the lower grades. We are squeaking by with assessments and things when you have hundreds of kids on at the same time who really need computer access. But since we can't depend on the state, we have to be self-reliant and put in place our own wireless solution. And so we have both projects, the fiber upgrade for the backbone, and wireless and switching. Those are both on the web as we speak, and we're trying to work those out within the E-rate time constraints. Now, E-rate, we would get 60% reduction in our purchase, so it would only cost us 40% to get 100% of the equipment, so we would do that. And any money savings that is not spent would go back to Dawn to oversee for what's best for the district, so that wouldn't go to my department.
On number 4,
Yes.
you had the statement about the state firming up their wireless proposed program.
Right.
When would you know that?
Well, you can see there's dates here because different schools opted in at different times. Like the high school opted in the year after the 2013 refresh that we were just forced out of a early buyout in. So 7th and 8th grade statewide bought in 2013. Our high school started 2014. So we've got one more year beyond current year that the state has said we'll take care of wireless and the controllers and all that, not leave you hanging. So we have 1 year before we have to worry about that. And then if you go out a couple years beyond that, when the current 4-year deployment of middle schools, then we have to worry about if the state hasn't come through with something, they may or they may not, then we need to enact something to take care of wireless at those schools because it will be older technology. So this is a grant program. So in the past, if you're a 7th or 8th grade, you participate and that's it. Now they're going to make us work for it. It looks that the structure emulates what we've been used to in the MLTI program. So the prerequisites that they want on the schools who participate are that you have decent equipment, you're providing professional development for the teachers to use it in the classroom, the teachers are getting value out of the technology, as are the students, and it's helping to support curriculum and education. One thing I had highlighted in this is suspiciously missing, that in the new program there's not only no mention of wireless, there's no mention of an Apple TV or anything along that line. There are other districts I've talked to who are looking at Chromebooks, and you can get a Chromebook for less than $600, and the state has said, don't think you're going to get $600 for a $250 Chromebook. That's not going to work. So as people look at options, you'll get a maximum of $200 per year, depending on the equipment. So there's a lot still going on this. I'm going to a meeting on Friday at the Yarmouth Public Library. Apple is hosting that as they try and support the grants moving forward, since there is no MLTI to work with. In the current budget, as we look for the possibility of MacBook Airs for grades 4 and 5, it would be us dealing directly with Apple. We wouldn't be purchasing them through MLTI, as has been the case in the past. So the pricing that's been forwarded to you through the budget has been worked out with Apple on student seat, teachers, eligible staff. So are there any questions? Yes.
Just on the wireless for a second. So is it a capacity issue?
Well, it is that plus more. Let me explain. So like Manchester, they have some PCs that use the 2.4 gigahertz radio range within the wireless card within the laptop. And then they have other PCs that have 2.4 and the newer standard 5. And so it's not like an either or, you use 2.4 or 5. The latest is that it blends. So depending on the load and what it senses around, it can actually use both at the same time. Some data packets go over 2.4, some go over 5. So in some cases, Pete, it's our limitation on the end user device with older devices. That's part of the problem. Others are, we're using mature wireless because it's not from the most recent 4-year deployment. It's from the 4-year deployment before that. So we got it. We inherited the access points, the switches, the controller, which is a physical controller back in those days. Newer controllers, you don't buy a $50,000, $60,000 controller to sit on premise and then you have to, keep it lit and air conditioned and secure. Now it lives in the cloud, and so all the load balancing is done coming in through the internet, through the cloud, and they can kind of run a short time on their own without being tweaked. constantly. I mean, the little bit of delay coming through the cloud is not significant enough that it hurts the throughput of the network. So that's the intelligent way to do it at this point.
I'm just curious, how much strain or whatever does all the students' personal devices have on capacity?
It's definitely significant. You raise a good point. We've had as many as 900 users who are guests, but it's not just students, it's staff. So if a staff has a phone in their pocket or bring in an iPad from home or whatever, there's all those devices. So we currently have a 1 gigabit connection out to the internet from the high school, and the schools on campus route their internet traffic through there. And Manchester has a 100 gig connection back to us for network and pass through to the internet, and both schools in Raymond have 200 megabit back to us. So we have significant bandwidth, and from what we've seen, we've never exceeded 600 meg of our 1 gig, which is 1,000 meg. So we're at pretty good place right now. But as things get more and more tight and people use more and more video and streaming and on, we'll need more. But so far, you know, MSLN, Main School and Library Network, they seem cognizant of the fact and they're trying to keep up with it. There was a standard where they wanted to give 1 gigabit for each 1,000 kids within 5 years, and probably at least 2 or 3 years have gone by in there since they started that plan. So we're not there yet, but they recognize that that's roughly what it'll be in the near-term future.
I was just thinking if there's a way that we can limit the students' usage
Right.
on their personal devices, that would be a win-win. I mean,
Mhm.
it's saving capacity for what's really needed, plus you're getting students off their phones.
It's a good point. We can do things like other districts do, other businesses do, where they'll toggle down the speed on the guest network, which makes it kind of a hassle. So they have an impetus to use the regular network, the regular speed, the regular device. The downside of that is you have a guest come in, wants to do a presentation, and they attach to the guest network. So unless you bring them in to our network and give them the password, which we're not afraid to do, but then what has to happen is currently we have to give them what's called a certificate. So it's something we have to load on their machine. And I've been looking at other web content filter companies, and to be honest with you, they all are largely saying the same thing, that more and more of the web is going to the secure. So it's HTTPS instead of HTTP. And the vendor I spoke with this week, FortiGate, said 63% of web traffic is getting to be secure web traffic, HTTPS, which you have to monitor more closely and impose certificates and all these things that everybody hates because it's kind of a hassle, but it's getting to be more and more of a necessity. And Google is routing more and more traffic through the secure than the non-secure. And so they've imposed this on us, and currently we're seeing, since Google made a change, a little warning, you know, HTTPS, so this is not secure until you update your certificate, which we're trying to do without tripping folks up. So we're doing that hassle. But so 63%, almost 2/3 of traffic is secure. So to go back to, well, gee, I don't think we're going to need a certificate and we don't need to deal with that, I don't think that's going to be realistic as the more and more folks I talk to.
Yes, I have a couple of things, Bob.
Mhm.
Can you tell me on the pink sheet here what the temporary unemployment is all about? And looking at a 944% increase on that one.
Okay, let me find that. 944%. Is it on page?
It's on page 23.
Okay. Oh, I see.
It's like $37.
Temporary employment.
That's the one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what is that?
It's only $34 though.
Yeah, so what is that? What do you have temporary employees?
Actually, we do. We have Kirby Kenyon. He is a temporary this is his second year of being a temporary employee.
Mm-hmm.
And then in addition to that, we have James from Bonnie. He's helping us out. We're directing BC stipends from the primary school to that position because there was nobody at the primary school interested in doing the job. So
Okay. All right.
Yep.
my next question is back to the transfer out. I was hoping that I'm a little foggy as to how the premiums on the damaged equipment is paid. Who actually pays those premiums? Yeah, I'm a little curious. I didn't catch all that.
Oh, that's okay. So we strongly encourage the families buy the insurance, and some do and some don't. And so, say I have $100 damage to my laptop. If I bought the $25 insurance, I have a $25 deductible, and my net loss is $50. Whereas if you didn't buy the insurance and there's a $100 repair, you owe $100. So the money goes to the schools, who roll it back to central office, and Stacy accumulates all that money. And we take all that into consideration. How much did we get back from the schools? How much did we get in insurance premiums? How much did we pay out? How many students didn't, or families didn't make good on it? And then the debt is carried on the student account until they go to graduate, and then not only computer debt, but if they lost a book or whatever, it goes into that, and it needs to be cleared before they graduate high school. So,
Okay.
But the district writes a check to Cross Insurance for the laptop.
we write a check, the insurance premium at the beginning of the year.
Right.
And as there's damage and it has to be sent out, we as it sends out, we accumulate laptop repair reports from my staff that get submitted to the insurance company for reimbursement. That's how that works.
Okay. So how are we going to get some of that $72,000 back that's an increase? Is that going to be coming back in towards the district as parents pay?
I'd have to get back to you on that, Scott, because there's always a huge outlay and a huge inlay, and it's just like I would have to get that from Don and Stacy about where we netted. Like in the beginning of this program, when we first started with insurance, the insurance company lost and we won. Then, a few years later, they win and we lose. So the goal is to always try and net out that, they're going to make what they're going to make. And of course, there's a profit in there, and we're just trying to lose as little as possible. But I will get back to you with the specifics on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
On that subject,
Yes.
is there a way for us to insure the machines that the families that don't choose to insure them themselves?
Well, we always pay repairs, even if the families don't. So
I'm just wondering how much we spend as a district fixing these machines that don't have insurance on them.
I could look into that for you.
Right. Right.
I have one more question, unless anybody else. Everything here looks like it's designated to your department, but it doesn't look like I see where certain things are being allocated towards other areas. Everything has got a designation of 27. I was just curious as to why it's different with your department compared to so many others.
So, what do you mean go
Like
somewhere?
some doesn't go to the elementary school, some doesn't charge to the middle school. Correct.
Exactly. Marge asked a great question. Is there any way we can find out how much of this transfer out is actually going to a particular,
For insurance?
Insurance or, the MacBook Airs, those are all going to Manchester. So everything has got a designation of 27.
Yes,
I'm just
I could
curious.
get you. Stacy has that data because she gets the premiums by school. She knows how much we took in. I have tech people for each building, and they know how much has gone out for repair. So we could get back to you with those.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Bob,
Yes.
you have RFPs out right now for the fiber.
Yes, we're going to extend that though, about another month.
What about the APs? So you're not doing the high school anymore?
We've allocated for 200 access points, and I've run this through our E-rate consultant, and they say it's fine. We're not going to buy 200 now. We'll need 200 district-wide, but we don't need 200 now. So we'll get roughly half of that now and then half later.
You're concentrating on like
Lower grades. Yep. Other questions?
Maybe.
Great. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A parent that's normally here said that they can hear Bob, but not necessarily you guys.
Oh,
I'd like you to speak up because
I'm on.
Oh, all right.
Sorry about that.
Somebody's watching.
Hi, Michelle.
I know it's Michelle.
I can't tell you that.
I know. I know. Who it
We
is.
know exactly.
She's our only audience.
She's our public.
She's our 100% all the time public. Okay. Next on the agenda is Rich Drummond, who's Director of Athletics. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We've had, just a quick little lead in, we've had another great year, and it's not over yet, despite the 12 inches of snow we're supposed to get Friday to Saturday. Yeah.
I told you. 12.
Sorry. And it's been great. As usual, a lot of booster support, community support, district support. But the one thing that before I kind of get into my budget, that I really enjoyed this year, and probably in 19 years as being an AD, just was my favorite thing, is a unified basketball team that started this year. And we're going to do it again next year. If you didn't get a chance to see those kids or the student helpers, if you can next year, definitely.
It was great.
It was awesome. It was great. And seeing one piece with that is I went to their end of the season banquet last Wednesday, and to see the unified athletes interact with the partners, it was pretty neat. So I just thought I'd mention that, and we're definitely doing it again next year. So now for the nuts and bolts and the good things. I'm going to be working off the pink sheets in the athletic piece. My budget's up 4.31%, but a lot of that is due to negotiated increases on the human resource side. I do have some accounts that I just want to draw your attention to as far as some increases and some cuts. I'm looking at 47, page 47 of 80. And at the bottom, you'll see a couple increases, one for 176 and one for 524. Those amounts, increases, represent dues and fees and memberships for our middle schools to be in the conferences that they're in, that we have to pay dues for. So I appropriately budgeted for those increases. Looking at purchase services on the next page, page 48 of 80 on the pink. If you look at 300 purchase services about halfway down, you'll see an increase of $2,998. That is for the last phase-in of volleyball. That is for over the last 6 years. I've taken a step every year to bring that under my budget, the athletic budget, and when it first started, it was fully funded by the parents and the kids, and that represents volleyball officials for varsity and JV. Those are the increases that I've had in the athletic budget, not counting the negotiated stipends and the HR side. And what I'll do now is I have had some cuts that work together with the administrative team to try to bring a healthy and fair budget forward. And I just want to go over some cuts that we'll be taking in the athletic arena. And I'll go flip back to 47 of 80. the pink still. You'll see about 3/4 of the way down. I've had some cuts in the middle school uniform line. A cut for $2,000 in the middle school supply line. Flipping back, sorry to make you keep going back and forth and back and forth. I know. Page 48 of 80. The two other cuts towards the bottom is at the high school level in uniforms and supplies. You'll see about a $6,000 cut at the high school level in uniforms and about a $5,000 cut in supplies. That's going to still leave monies that we can still operate. We're going to have to get creative and make some things happen, but it will keep the kids safe. We're still going to be able to compete, and I think we'll still be able to put products out there that both communities will still be proud of. And I've said it before, and we all say it, it's definitely not about winning at all. It's about the experience you provide. And I think with these cuts and the minor increases that I have, that we can still sustain the product that we've put out there for the kids.
What's the big bump in the top of 48 in your stipend, your athletic stipend? Is that another person?
No, there's no additions. That's probably marged through negotiations and to where the stipends are tied into the teacher's contract. Those are probably proposed and expected increases in stipends. Yep.
Hey, Rich. When you say that we're cutting uniforms, what does that translate to? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, and that's a great question. We're not fully cutting uniforms. We'll still be able to provide uniforms for the kids at Jordan Small, Wyndham Middle, and Wyndham High School. What we're going to have to do is, right now we're about on a 4-year rotation for uniforms. That could go out to a 6-year. It could go out to a 7-year. And what it's really going to mean is, more so at the middle school level, I'm going to have to get creative to where, instead of possibly shopping out and buying a whole set, if I have some uniforms that are somewhat damaged or getting really worn, I'm going to have to do try to replace them that way instead of a whole set.
Do you know what condition the uniforms are in right now?
The district's been very great to help us upgrade our uniforms and everything. I'd probably give us a good strong B+, A-. Yep. I don't know how that really relates to standards base, but but I think we're in good shape. We're not, and I say this, we are not going to put kids out there to where they're looking. Yes. Exactly.
Not a good one.
Yeah.
Now, I know we
Good
haven't talked about it in a while, and I'm not suggesting it at this moment.
No.
Is the pay to participate? It's the pay to participate, but I'm not going there.
Yeah.
But we don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you? And I don't know what other districts do, but have you ever looked at having the kids supply, pay for their own uniforms?
Yeah. I haven't really looked at that as far as kids supplying their own uniforms, Marge.
I mean, paying for them. I'm
or
sorry. I
paying
know
for
they
them.
can't supply them. Buy them.
Yeah, and it relates and it ties back into the activity fee, the pay to play. It's a lot of communities have something like that. I've done some studies on it and I've shared some data, but with these cuts, it might be time to have another conversation about that, or possibly develop a plan or a proposal to take a stronger look at.
And I only say that because we're broadening, what we want to make available to the kids. And I think the best way to do that is basically they got to have some skin in the game. I mean, right now, all they have to have in there, well, I shouldn't say all, it's a lot, is they have to be academically, you know what I mean? There's certain criteria to play, but maybe there's other pieces. And I don't think that would eliminate other students because there's always a scholarship type fund in everything, you know. But anyway.
Yeah.
Well, let me follow up on that. So, like football, you gotta pay for arm pads. You're buying arm pads and everything.
No, we don't. The
Okay.
kids,
You're
there's a
not-
lot of, and
Cleats.
we call that hidden costs.
Right.
So for each kid
So there's some
participating,
skin in the game as we speak now.
there's hidden costs.
That's my returning salvo.
But to,
Rich, I
yes.
think didn't the middle school have to pay for cross-country shirts to participate?
in the past, something like that, yeah, we've because of the amount of kids participating, when you see the middle school cross country teams leave, it's 2-3 buses. If Mike Kelly was here, we'd have a little chat, I'm sure, about this topic. But yeah, something like that. We get the T-shirts for the kids, and the kids pay for those. Yes.
Does anybody have anything else to Mr. Drummond?
It's actually only because I know we're going to be meeting on Friday to talk about the policy, facilities use policy. And when I look at the athletic facilities coordinator, that job is more than just that. It's district-wide.
Yep.
And I guess my question is, should that, I'm thinking in terms of the cost center, should a portion of that be in Bill's budget?
And that's something that we've scratched the surface on in the discussion with Bill and I, and my opinion, yes, but
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I mean, given the amount, just because in those dialogues, the amount of work that's not specific to athletics, but to community, it's pretty huge.
yeah, the community use here, just to speak to the position a little bit, and you didn't really get the scope of it until you really started using SchoolDude, and the requests started coming in, and they started coming in district wide. It's big.
It's enormous.
Yeah, it's big.
So maybe Sandy, if you could look into pulling some of that out of his, and because what I really like to see is an accurate reflection of how much it costs to really run our athletics. And if her job is not specific, not some of it is. Don't get me wrong, but
Nope.
a huge part of it is not.
Sounds like he's willing to put a 0.5 under Bill.
So moved.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anybody have anything else for Rich? Nope. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is the principal of the high school, Mr. Chris Howell.
I'm on page 1 in my book.
Could you show us page 1?
Looks like this. It says Wyndham High School on the front.
Oh, yeah. No,
Your book's extra thick.
On the
You got like
pink
3
sheets
years
on
worth.
page 74 of 80.
It's only page. Keep going.
We good? Thank you for giving the opportunity to talk a little bit about the high school budget. I just hope you've had a chance to read through our cover sheets. Much of the work and much of our goal setting has been around our implementation of a proficiency-based diploma at Wyndham High School. And the goals that are listed there are direct goals that are in support of moving that forward for our first graduating class with a proficiency-based diploma in the class of 2021, who are the current 8th graders at Wyndham Middle School and Jordan Small. And so all of our professional time, including the time we had in the half day today, has been devoted towards moving that agenda forward. and making sure that Wyndham High School is the best place it possibly can be, curriculum instruction and assessment wise, for students in the communities that we serve. The budget that I presented to you, first of all, I'll start with increases. We really have one significant increase for this current year that's going to be coming up, and that's due to our decennial accreditation visit for New England Association of Schools and Colleges, and that's our 10-year accreditation process. And actually, it's year 11. We were put off by a year because of the volume of schools that NEASC actually had to cover in 2017, and we were asked if we wouldn't mind going in 2018. So the last week in April, first week of May in 2018, we'll have a visiting team for about 4 days at Wyndham High School, going through 7 standards that they've set for accreditation, and then we'll be making an accreditation decision on Wyndham High School. And so what you see there for an increase, and it's listed as a $30,000 increase. $18,000 of that go to costs of the visit, which include the 16 members who will be coming, putting them up for the 3 nights that they'll be here for visiting, because they're people that are coming across New England. It also covers a survey that Endicott College does for us and gives us data on how our students, our community, and also our teachers view not only our school but our facilities and the resources that are given to them for teaching and learning. So it covers that. The other dollars, or the other amount that's there, the additional $12,000, that takes quite a bit of work to prepare for an accreditation visit, and this includes money for summer work, because honestly our school time work is far, far too precious at the moment for what we need to be working on for a proficiency-based diploma. Trying to try to fit as much time in the summer so that the committees who will be working on writing our accreditation reports will have the time that they'll be able to do that. Also, it recognizes some small stipends. We have 7 people who step forward to be committee chairs. This entire process is teacher-led, which is a little hard getting that control away, but it's teacher-led. They work through writing the reports, and it's some stipends to recognize the extra time that they'll be doing as they work to write those reports that eventually becomes our accreditation report that's acted on by NEASC. So that really is our sole increase that we have in the budget. And some of the reductions that are there, number 1 is a classroom teacher, and that classroom teacher will be out of our business department. We are in the midst right now of, we've collected our numbers for all of our sign-ups for the fall, and we're building class schedules. It looks like at this moment the impact of this position will be a computer class, and some of our business simulation classes will no longer run at Wyndham High School. The position itself is, we have an individual who will not be returning due to retirement. And so at this time, to help cover the costs of what we've been given for a target, it's not filling that position, which will take a business department, which I started when I started at Wyndham High School 6 years ago, was 3 people. Will be taken down to 1 is where we'll be at in that particular department. Other places where there are decreases in this budget. Last year we had added a support stipend for Naviance. Naviance is our computer program that we use for all of our college transition materials. Megan can tell you, because she's probably uploaded more things into that in order to be able to get ready for her transition. But those activities covered by that stipend, we've been able to move some other things and make some shifts in the workload in order to cover that. Be nice if we could offer a little bit more support, but that's really the cut that's there. And then with a transition in the position for our college and career specialist, we're actually still going to try to offer some summer support as kids transition off, but this reduction will reduce the amount of time that we can offer to families, specifically for those kids whose plans change after graduation due to either financial issues or family issues. Which we do run into as kids coming up on their May 1st deadline for making decisions, but oftentimes the financial decisions that they have really don't turn out what they hoped they would be. And when it comes time to be making a first payment and finding out that you can't do that, it's been helpful to be able to offer that service. We work with kids and families as they transition. So those are really the 3 significant cuts that are identified within the budget.
I'm worried about the Naviance. Why are you smiling? I'm worried about it because in the past, past years, not maybe recently, but there's always been issues with accumulating things and getting things put together for our students applying to college. And this seemed like a nice solution to that. And so, I don't like it. I'm concerned, and you'll have to tell me why I shouldn't be concerned, because that's a pretty important piece that we offer our students.
With any cut, I think we're all concerned, but to the extent, number one is we've gotten a little bit more mature with the program. Processes that used to take a little bit longer have been sped up a little bit. But in some cases, making sure that the database is maintained as far as file uploads and things like that may take a little bit longer than what they've had in the past. I mean, I wish I could say this isn't going to have an impact, but it is going to have an impact.
Right. Okay. And while I have the floor, so the you only mentioned 2 classes that were going to be cut based on, is that what I understood? Because in your little summary there was an impact area. Yeah, no, I'm talking business, yeah.
Sure.
Two classes that you consider not.
Right now that's something I would get back to you on.
Yep.
Right now we're in the process of, we look at, many of our signups and electives are by student interest. And we're in the process right now of collecting those numbers to determine what schedules are going to look like, which classes are going to meet board policy for numbers, and we're still in the process for that department. In fact, it was one of the things that we were meeting on today. So definitely I could come back to you and give you an exact course schedule of which courses that we're not going to be able to offer in that department. I just need another day or so.
Yeah. No, I was just taking somewhere you listed, yeah. It's on the back of your first white page at the very bottom when courses most likely to be impacted. And then I pulled up what you currently offer in business and technology. And the technology, database management, internet web, keyboarding, spreadsheets, word processing. I guess my question is, and I don't have the answer, how important, if those were to go, I mean, we're becoming a technology-based society, and we're hacking away at technology.
Sure. If we weren't in the budget situation that we were in, this position would have been moving towards bringing in a specialist in computer programming and also computer science. And because really our program has been transitioning from a traditional business program and should be transitioning over towards computer sciences. That's ultimately where my plan, prior to going into this, that's where that position would have gone. Given where we are budget-wise and looking, can we make a year without it? That was the suggestion putting forward, because in non-elective classes, we still have numbers that are healthy enough to make sure that we're running. We're going to have to cut some electives here, but it keeps us from having to cut some core classes for students. But ultimately, if this wasn't the budget year that it was, I'd be coming to you saying, the position we're looking to replace this with is a computer science person.
Yeah, because would it be fair to say that some of these that are on the list of the white sheet, like keyboarding and things like that, the students are getting at a younger age now anyway?
Keyboarding, I would agree, yeah.
Maybe in this world or
Correct.
Andy's?
Correct.
Yeah.
But we would be looking into programming. Java was a course an intro to Java, coding, those types of things. Also, honestly, I think there's a great interest by students for computer repair and some of the elements related to that, and we have some facilities that could help to support that. However, right now we don't have funding in this year to be able to move forward with that.
And would any of those courses be available through some of the college partnerships that we're talking about, or?
They would only be available if a student's willing to go to the vocational center and to access it through there. But as far as being able to access it as a singleton at Wyndham High School, they wouldn't be able to.
Like through the partnership that we talked about with USM and.
For the moment, USM is looking at some of their core classes in initially starting with English and then also with math. Whether or not computer science in the future could be something that's available.
Anything else?
I actually have a quickie on the back to the Naviance.
Okay.
Is that you took some of the stipend money away, or that the person that's doing that, I don't know if it's a person or people, did you just cut it back a little bit, or there is no one doing that now?
There is, the person who was actually going to fulfill this stipend ended up leaving us partway into the school year, and you may or may not remember that we went about a month and a half where we didn't have somebody who was in our as our college career transition specialist. So that individual would have been taking on the maintenance of the Naviance database as well as any updates and things like that that need to take place. So we either work with JMG to figure out if we can get some additional monies to be able to support that, or look for monies elsewhere, either through saving some money through temporary salaries or some other pieces to make sure that she can get the work done that she needs to get done, to make sure that that database is maintained as well as possible, because that database is how we talk to a majority of our post-secondary institutions with the forms and things that go back and forth, and how kids are submitting.
Now Nicole's I feel horrible because I can never remember the person's name.
Carrie.
Position down there. At one, because she came in originally on a grant, but we paid
Nope,
her.
we don't. It's
salary
still
now.
that grant
Part
has
of it?
no that we've always paid $24,000 of that grant, and that grant has been because of the performance of it has been granted into the basically as long as we want it. Because of so we pay a portion of it, and then Melmac and Jobs for Maine Graduate pay the other half. It's kind of a three-legged stool for how that's funded.
Yeah. No, and I only bring that up as kind of like couldn't that Naviance fall under her?
It would be. She would be the individual helping to maintain that database.
And she couldn't do that as part of her. I mean, there's a stipend there. I mean, she's already getting paid. Can't she do it while she's there? I know this sounds.
It's outside of contracted time.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not our contract. It's the contract we have with them. I'm lost on her. I'm not sure where she falls in the realm of contracts when you say contract.
It's the person's actually not an employee of ours.
Right.
They're an employee of Jobs for Maine Graduates.
We can't give her job. I mean, we can't give her work. I think that's what you're saying. Just say it, will you please? I feel like I'm jabbering. I'm trying to find out.
It's to pay and cover additional time than what's been actually outlined within the contract.
Thank you.
Do you have summer school?
We do have summer school. Our students pay for summer school. Classes run about $175 each.
Does that pay for the staff?
That pays for the staff. So we have a.
That's
Say that again? Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, yes. We only have the expense side within our budget. The revenue side, all of that is sent over to central office, and any extra becomes part of general fund. We don't net budget.
Chris, I have a quick question. I'm looking at page 79 on the pink sheet. And I was hoping that you might be able to explain to me the importance of a auditorium manager, because that the bottom line on that cost is catching my eye pretty good.
Sure. That position's actually a district-wide position, and
Okay.
because they're located at the high school, that's why they were placed into the high school budget. But it's an individual that serves all the buildings in the district, as well as any outside entities that need to use somebody to oversee the auditorium.
Okay.
And I think, honestly, I think Dawn would probably be the best person to kind of give the history and why it's in this location.
Okay. What does an auditorium manager do?
Sure. Believe it or not, you folks have placed me as the custodian of the auditorium. However, after 2 o'clock for the months of February, March, April, I actually can't use that room because it is so booked by our own school groups, by theater groups, things like that. It is a well-used room. It's actually, that room is serving the function for which the community built it 14 years ago. Want it to be used. That person oversees the investment that the community has made and does everything from making sure that the lights are up to date, the sounds are up to date, that the room is used properly so that things are being maintained to make sure that they last for a long, long time. They're also the individual that works with all of our student groups for whether it be a middle school play, a primary school play, a high school play, to make sure that all of their needs are met. What's a little different about this position, I believe I'm correct, it's a salaried position because the hours vary so much depending upon what the needs are. But if you have a community group that rents it, because many weekends that thing is also, if that group needs to use any of our sound or light equipment, that person's in there overseeing to make sure that it's used properly, to make sure that that room, again, that investment is maintained.
Okay.
And that's a year-round position.
So I understand why it's being billed out to the high school, but is there any way we might be able to look into why Chris is taking the brunt of that cost, as far as it's not being shared by the district? Right.
Well, they do pay. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember where in the budget there is, but there's a fee.
The schools,
All the schools,
Yeah.
or something. I thought there was money. Somebody.
You weren't supposed to tell Drew that.
Sorry. No, I thought there was a thing that everybody pitched in for.
But what
I
about
gotta be in a
non-school
Okay,
things? There
non-
is some revenue. Once again, maybe it goes to Central Station.
Yep.
Central Station.
So,
District office.
and Eric brings up a great point that
I'm sorry.
any revenue that's generated by the auditorium does go back to the general fund, to either, and really it's to offset taxation, or you have the opportunity to vote at the end of the year on whether that gets designated somewhere. But it doesn't go directly into the room, much like the gate receipts that come in at athletic events don't go to the athletic department, they go into the general fund for that space.
Okay. Thank you.
In other words, if you had some revenue, you'd look.
Anybody else have anything?
Picture of the other schools and get none of the answer.
We could.
Chris, thank you.
All set?
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. And next we have Rich Reserve, and he is in charge of the Katahdin School, which, if folks at home who are not watching are not aware, I know. We're not very popular, I don't know. But anyway, he is up at Camp Hines in Raymond. Is their new location since they moved from Mackworth Island.
Yes, we are, and happy to be there. Thank you, everybody, for having me tonight. Good evening. Since this is a new program, so to speak, I'd like to touch upon a few things having to do with mission goals and tying things into the strategic plan. I'll just briefly, because my budget talk will be even more brief. So, I hope, since Dawn's not here, and I tried to get Stacy, but she would not accept a bribe to sit next to me. So, alas. So, in terms of our mission at the Katahdin program, we're there to serve the students who haven't been successful for whatever reason at the middle schools or the high school. So we recognize that every individual is important and an important part of our learning community. we're very much relationship based. It's what keeps our kids coming, and it keeps them growing. So it's very much about what we do. We're looking at a highly individualized, standard-based programming for all of our kids. We're very experiential. We like to integrate therapeutic adventure, service learning, restorative practices, and community partnerships into all aspects of our program. So that's sort of our general approach to engagement with the kids. In terms of our goals, it boils down to this: we want to provide a safe, nurturing, supportive, relational atmosphere that ensures support and scaffolding for students as they navigate through the educational arena. One big way that we do this is encouraging our students to take risks, both academically and experientially. I use the example of what we did last week. I took 8 students down to Washington, D.C. We had a fantastic 4-day trip with 8 students that when I mentioned this to a few people at the high school today, when they asked about the trip, and I mentioned who I brought on the trip, they were sort of surprised that I had these kids going down there, meeting with Senator Collins in her office for about a half an hour, touring everything, living communally, traveling in 2 vans for 9+ hours as a group. I mean, it was, not the easiest thing in the world to do, and these kids did it famously. So it's that type of risk taking that we encourage, as well as that getting a little bit out of your comfort zone as you look at things academically. So pushing kids to go to the next level, those who had never thought about college. We're constantly trying to encourage that and invoke schools beyond. So taking that next step where kids never thought that would be something they'd want to do. We're really trying to push that envelope as much as we can. In terms of supporting the strategic plan, one thing that we did and sort of carried over from REAL is our later start time. I know the district's exploring that. I can tell you without a doubt that is something that works very well for our students. It's a no-brainer in terms of how the need for sleep is out there for kids. We start at 9:30.
Oh, okay.
Yes, much later. Yeah, in fact, a student was at school much earlier than that for a meeting this morning, and her phone alarm went off. And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry. This is when I get up in the morning." And those of us who had been, up at 5 sort of looked at her with incredulous looks. I mean, what? This is when you get up? Anyway. So yeah, they're a little bit spoiled, but
take that back. Back to the high school.
But in terms of what this does for our engagement of our kids and the attendance piece, which chronic attendance problems for many of our students in the past, that just goes away. And it's a miracle what a later start time will do. So think about that. The other piece that I tie into our strategic plan is the fact that everything we do programming-wise is individualized, it's student-centered programming, and that's part of what we have as a district guideline, so to speak, and that's the way we do everything in terms of what we do. So getting into the nuts and bolts of things, in terms of increases, I don't have anything significant to increase. I would like to use this opportunity, though, to maybe request 6 or 7 skidders or monster trucks. Just boots. Once we get out of those, yeah, we're a little bit muddy getting into school right now. So we're making the best of a very sticky situation.
Next thing if you start at 9:30.
Yeah. No, by then things are warming up and the frost is gone, and that's not good. No. Yeah, maybe we need to start it much earlier in the morning. Anyway, I don't have anything, in terms of an increase in our budget. Decrease-wise, I don't really have it. We're sort of status quo budget-wise, but I would like to point out that we do want to use our staff as much of a resource in the district as we possibly can. So to that end, our drivers do assist Mike Kelly with some of his transport issues for students that are more of the outlier kids, especially those that are in our neighborhood and easier to transport to some of the other programs that the district provides services with. So we do that as much as possible. We also have our AmeriCorps group. Our kids, they dated if I called them kids. They are kids, but they are able to travel to the other schools and do their STEM activities with other schools. So we offer that as a service as well. And then our service at Camp Hines in terms of what we offer space-wise and team building-wise for other schools, we're always there as an option for both schools, individual teachers, what have you, to bring school groups in and work with us and our staff and our student leaders who are trained in ropes course and team building stuff as well. So we like to be as much of a asset to the district as possible, not just in terms of our space, but our people as well.
I gotta say, I came out and visited the school for like an hour, totally drank the Kool-Aid. I think you guys are the coolest thing ever, and we are not utilizing the resources that we have with that school and with those AmeriCorps volunteers nearly as much as we should be. They're an amazing group, and there's some amazing things happening out there that we really, once we get through this budget thing, we need to look at that, because
I'd welcome that.
I don't know about AmeriCorps. I know LearningWorks funding got pulled. Did AmeriCorps?
Not yet. We're optimistic. I'm actually going to Senator Collins' office tomorrow.
They're the other side.
Right.
I know, but there's still a piece of
Yeah,
it. It doesn't matter. Anyway,
optimism is high for this program staying in place, and I'm going with some other people to Senator Collins' Portland office tomorrow to talk about that issue, funding issue. So, but people are optimistic.
How many high schoolers and how many middle schoolers do you have?
Right now we have 23 students on the books. That'll probably go up to, I don't want to say a number.
Do you have a capacity?
Especially with these guys behind me. But capacity, we're still learning. We're still learning our space. We're still learning our personalities. So it's a melding of both of those things to make sure that it's the right fit for who we currently have and then who we're bringing in. So I'd say high 20s probably max this year, but we're still, I'd say 26 probably for this year, and we're looking to fill that very, very soon.
And are they all in-district students?
All in district. I have 3 middle schoolers. The other 20 are high schoolers.
Thank you.
Yes.
How many are teachers? 2? How many teachers do you have?
I have 4 teachers actually. 3 on 3 teachers, one counselor, and 2 of the teachers are under my budget. 1 is under Lisa's budget.
Okay.
And how many J&G people do you get?
None.
I mean,
AmeriCorps we have 3. And then
programs.
I have 3 full times, and then a Vista who serves many purposes.
What is once you're in this program, do you have any notion of how many cycle out and go back to traditional, or once they're in here, this is they're in?
Very rarely, if I can reflect back to the real school days, and I worked there for a number of years, rarely did students come in and then go back to the mainstream setting. Rarely. It does happen sometimes, but it's infrequent.
Right. To your, go ahead, somebody else.
Okay. Not a roll.
To your point on the vans, I know you have 3 van drivers. And it was in your budget last year and it's not in your budget this year. Is that because we're using them for parts of the other district?
Yeah, those are Mike has taken over that portion of the budget, and I'm not even going to touch that question as to how that happened. I was just pleasantly surprised to not see it under me, and I'm not going to kick that dog. I'll defer to Sandy, or put that as I'll get back to you, Dawn, question.
To get a true reflection of what the Katahdin School, I mean, transportation is a huge piece because they get door-to-door service.
Indeed.
No matter where they live.
That's how you get them to come.
Right.
So I'm just curious, Sandy, the logic behind that, if we really want to know what this program costs with this profile of student.
I'll make a note of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
And by the way, if anybody's planning on going up there,
don't. Not yet.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you own a car wash company.
It's like,
it's a little buddy. Yeah.
Can you give me a quick education between the difference between adult education and what you provide?
Well, the big thing, and I'm going to harken back to this word, and it's relationship, because we really utilize that as a key for engagement for our kids. They get to know our staff very, very well, and we get to know them. And because of that, the kids are comfortable coming to us. Once that relationship piece is built and solid, then they can access their academics much more successfully than they ever had. I'm not saying that doesn't happen in the adult ed world. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's
I
not-
don't
and
think
the
it's
age-
like
and
that.
And the age group is totally different because you can't be, I think you have to be, I forget the age
There are-
to even go to adult
Well, there
ed.
are high school students that access adult ed, but it's I don't want to use the term
Doesn't-
impersonal. That's I don't want to offend Tom or the adult ed program, which is phenomenal, but we really utilize any aspect of relationship building that we can, from preparing meals with students to we have a therapy dog in our school. It's things that are more touchy-feely, if you will, in terms of engaging the kids at a level that they haven't really had in school before, and that's what makes things work, I think, in our program.
Okay. The reason why I ask is because I remember looking back at Tom's presentation, and he has several classes that he offers where it's strictly academics. And I'm just curious as to why a student would go. I don't know if they were college courses.
No,
Yeah, he does- he does.
but
He has a
there are some high school courses.
I
that
think
they
there was
offer.
some
There
high
are.
school
Mhm.
courses in there, so
But I
I'm just
think
kind of
those are
curious.
kind of a
Traditional class style stuff, and this is for
kids
kids
have already
that have
proven they
not
can
had
act,
success
they
in a
can do it.
traditional classroom. So this is an alternative way for them to get that education in a way that they can relate to and engage in. Whereas if you sent them through the adult ed program, it's traditional classroom at night.
But there have been a few students that have opted out of real, and then one Katahdin student this year that opted for adult ed. So it does happen, but
Right.
it's really, do you have the internal pieces necessary to do it on your own without those people there that can help you? And many of our students get one-on-one help for almost every class.
Okay.
So that's not going to be the case at adult ed.
All right.
Because if you have 3 teachers for 22 students, I mean, the ratio is a little bit different than probably, and I don't know what
Yes,
adult
but I
ed's
think
doing,
my
but-
point is that I don't want. It's not right to have the same type of class being offered in 2 different locations, and that's what I'm kind of worried about.
not the same.
You should worry.
I'm okay.
It's not the same at all.
Would you describe the profile of this student
Maybe that would help me.
and how you get into the program?
It's 2 very difficult things to do, but
Yeah, I know.
because
Yeah, I know.
our kids, I'd love to have you come, and
Yeah, maybe
anyone,
that's
wherever
another
this camera
discussion.
is, can certainly call and come and visit our school. How a student gets into our program, it could vary, but the unifying thing is that for whatever reason they haven't been successful in one of the middle schools or the high school, and that we have 13 students that are special ed, and then 10 that are not identified at this time. I bet many of those 10 probably could be, but they're in our setting, so they don't have to be because they're getting the services that they need. You've got lots of anxiety issues. The fact that there's 1,000 students at Wyndham High School is just too much for many of these kids, and they just have if you look at their track records, their attendance issues have been abysmal for their entire school career. Why is that? Lots of different reasons. Many private, many complicated, but the unifying theme behind all of them is that they haven't had success, and really what we are is sort of the last resort for 4. Many of them are going to just drop out. So they don't, many of them do not have they're not in a place to access adult ed or to go the high set route either. So we're really there to prevent students from dropping out of high school. And by doing so, and keeping them engaged and growing their confidence in themselves, they're going to go beyond high school, many of them. And without, I'm not trying to sell our program to you, but without it, there's a very good chance many of our students are not going to make it through high school. So, and then certainly not beyond that. Maybe they will down the road, but it's an intervention that's happening right now, and it's working for these kids. So, in terms of how students get to our program, Kate, we're still working on that one too, because I know Drew has his ideas. He's got students he wants to send, as does Chris, as does Randy, and I've got guidance counselors, I've got social workers who I talk to basically every day. And they all have lists of students that want to come, and we're trying to make it happen so that we get the right mix. We're helping the right kids that are in the most need, those that are closest to dropping out, and there are a surprising number that are close to dropping out of high school or failing out of high school, and we're trying to grab those kids and bring them into the fold so that doesn't happen.
So, quick question, off budget, but do we still have a boat, or did Martin Mackey take that with him?
The boat, I'm going to defer that to someone else. That's a complicated. It exists.
Well, I was wondering if we can't find.
Never got in the water.
I was wondering if we can't find how well that works.
Yeah, right. Might need it to get to school, actually. So.
No, yeah.
Are we all set with Rich?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Rich.
So we still have it otherwise.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the principal of the Wyndham Middle School, Drew Patton.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good to see everyone. All right, so I'll start things off. Much of what we've been working on in terms of our school goals, you heard about that. You heard that presentation. So one of them is Ignite. That's what our professional development was related to today. Time for planning for teachers, some professional development for make it, take it activities that they can implement during their Ignite classes. And then in addition to that, today we did some work on what we call Ignite 2.0, which is taking what we have now and looking at what we might offer next year. So that might be adding an additional interventionist to make sure that our intervention numbers for each of those classes are favorable, maybe down into 8 or 9 students as opposed to 10 or 12. We're looking at offering a math intervention for students next year as well. And then also looking at implementing some social and emotional learning for kids through Ignite, either school-wide or with our 6th graders. We're finding that is a need for many of our kids, and just a culture building for the school. So that's some of the work there. And then in addition to that, what we've been working on is project-based learning. And that you'll see really next year in terms of full implementation, where you'll get invites in the spring to come to culminating events and see the work of all the kids, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So I can talk more about that, but it's nothing that you're going to necessarily see in action this year, although there are some teams that are working on some larger projects. So in terms of the budget, if you go to Pink Sheets, I'm not referring you to any particular page. What I've been doing over the past couple of years, obviously I inherited a budget that some of it I understood and some of it I didn't. And this year is really just tweaking it a little bit further, breaking down some of the bigger categories and expenses into more distinct categories, such as a science line, such as a specific Ignite line for those types of resources. Oftentimes, when I built the budget last year, I didn't know that we'd be having Ignite, so it was hard to put a placeholder in there for materials, supplies, professional development, those types of things. So if you see rearrangements, it's really because of that. It's either I pulled money from one place and put it in another one, or added a category and pulled money from somewhere to make that category. In terms of really large additions, there aren't any overall. In terms of decreases, the two that I'm proposing based on the current situation with the budget is reducing from 9 homeroom teachers in 6th grade down to 8. Our current class size is about 24 students per teacher in 6th grade, and that's with 9 homeroom teachers. Next year's incoming population is smaller. It's about 186 kids. So if we go down to 8 homeroom teachers, we'll be below our current class size at 23.5. So that was the reasoning for that. Before I go on to the next reduction, I do want to just sort of a cautionary note in terms of numbers going forward. So next year, I would have 188 with 9 homeroom teachers in 6th grade, 218 in 7th grade with 8 homeroom teachers for 6th grade, 9 homeroom for 7th grade. You can see the class sizes on there, and then 9 for 8th grade with 196 kids. There's a bubble coming, though. So 2018-19, if I read the numbers correctly from Danielle, she has 229 coming into 6th grade. The year after that, she'd have 238 coming in. So, right. So one is from a budget standpoint, my guess is you can sort of follow that up with different teachers as there's going to be reductions. But spacing is a different issue. And I do think it would be important that we take that up early next year in terms of what we're going to do. Because if we want all of the 6th graders to be housed in Field Allen, there's currently not enough space for them. Just throwing it out there. I would have to move an art teacher to be able to do that back over to the main building. I have one art teacher in Field Allen. She has a kiln. I'm not sure that's going to travel easily. And be moving her to a space that's antiquated and may not be able to fit all the kids. And then in addition to that, there's increased special ed numbers that come along with a population size of 229 or 238. So we are ready. Do not have adequate needs for our resource rooms, our 2 resource rooms. One is very small, and the other one is okay. So I think it's just something to put on the radar, a conversation about what things would look like and what those ideas are. Because I think if we don't plan for them, we're going to be in a little bit of a pickle.
Is that something we could talk about, Raymond? I know it's a difficult subject, but
We're opening all kinds of cans of worms
All
tonight.
right. All right, continue on, sir.
We will keep it in our clock.
Sir, can I just ask a clarifying question here?
Sure.
Referring to this front page.
Yep.
Because you talk about a reduction in the 6th grade teachers, which I can show, which I can see here, but then there's an increase in the 7th grade teachers. So are we hiring 7th grade teachers?
I think that on the 2016-17, under grade 7, 199 kids, it's 9 teachers.
9.
Yep, and that's my fault. I probably didn't catch that. That was, we added an additional teacher, which we accessed the contingency fund last year. That was a request I made, I believe, in June. So it's just not reflected on there.
Okay, so that should be 9.
Correct.
So there's no change there. And then also on that white sheet, we have a reduction of a computer teacher from 1 to 0, which I thought we did that last year.
That was last year, correct.
Okay, so computer should be 0.
Correct, yes.
So,
Drew, on your white sheet.
Well, I haven't been doing a good job on my white sheet.
At the very bottom, you say you have a reduction of 12,000. Did you talk about this?
No, I was going to get to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
Right in. All right.
Wanted to make sure we had the class sizes, the bubble that's coming up, and then the spacing issue. So that's all right. Another proposal I made was in terms of looking at the budget and what I could perhaps be more creative with was looking at after-school programming for kids. I believe we offer a lot. 12,000 is a significant reduction to that. I think I can be creative with how we offer it and make sure that there's a diversity of after-school activities that really honor the bang for the buck. Some activities we offer might only service 8 or 10 kids. Drama, for instance, services like 60, 70 kids. Looking at that, there's also I need to do some work with the staff, but I think there are some options there while still meeting the contract in terms of my own teachers offering after-school activities not through paid stipends. So that's something that I'll be exploring with them just to bump up the diversity and also bump up the number of kids that we're serving. We have a lot of teachers that work after school with kids, as part of their obligation to do so. But other teachers, I think that we can maybe get on board with offering something if they're not regularly providing late nights or after school help with kids.
I thought everybody had to provide a late night, 2 late nights.
I think there's some, when you look at contract, there's nothing that's necessarily mentioned in the contract specifically. I think it comes back to past practice. And that's something as a staff that we're still looking at, working on, and sort of what does that mean for teachers. Chris's high school teachers typically serve 2 late nights. There is an expectation that mine serve late nights. But I think tightening up on that, and then also ensuring that maybe as a school we are offering activities for kids if they're not working with students. So you may have teachers staying late, but they're not necessarily working with students on providing them help that they might need, because it's typically centered towards our language arts and math teachers.
Do we have 2 late night bus nights?
We do.
Mm-hmm.
There was a request from the staff to add late busing for 4 nights a week. However, they would love that, because what happens is it limits their ability to have kids after school. It limits my ability as an administrator to assign consequences sometimes, because there's not transportation available on other nights. So pie in the sky, that would be fantastic to have busing every night, but that's going to cost you.
I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that not every teacher offers stays. Am I understanding this?
So the expectation for me is that if they need to stay to support kids, that they're expected to do that. I think that you would find that it varies in terms of teachers that stay that may not be actually working with students.
Well, I don't care.
What would they do?
I guess I'm confused. If they want to stay and do their work, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, which probably is never right, I thought that it was a given that there were 2 late nights so students who need help or whatever could come, and that's why we're supplying the buses.
So I think you would find that it varies depending on the subject area and what kids typically stay for in terms of to get that extra help. I don't know if that is making sense to you.
So maybe like a music teacher may not have anybody staying for extra help, but they're good. So that's the person you're talking about that may not have as many, but the math teacher is definitely going to probably be there. You know, so maybe the art teacher doesn't have as many staying after.
I'm not so worried about it.
But those are teachers that he may be able to.
Yeah, that's what
he's saying that may not have that obligation. So could they help in another area as far as homework?
I look at it as, is there an opportunity there to provide some equity to staff that are all on the same contract, but also look at opportunities where, if because of my programming, even though I'm on the same contract as a fellow teacher, because of my programming, and I may not have the same number of students seeing me for late night, is there an opportunity for me to now offer one-on-one tutoring with kids in the library? Or is there an opportunity for me to offer some type of after-school programming while my fellow teacher is working with interventions with kids after school? If that makes sense, whether it's STEM-based, we could talk about. So that's something I intended to do last year, but it was on my list. I just didn't get to it, and here we are in March, and it's still on my list. So it's something that I think we'll take up next week. Yep.
Anything else? While everybody's looking through their book, I will tell you, I want you all to know that I am not totally insane. I am vindicated, and if you go to the last page, and you can do it on every single school, at the last item on the last page is a supplies line, and every school pays $250 for the auditorium.
Okay, you're not insane.
Well,
and it's on
I never said
every
that.
school's
$200?
$250. I'm sorry.
$250.
$250?
$250.
I heard that for the show.
95,000.
And I only know it was because to help defer, like when they have concerts.
Good job.
So, I am vindicated.
All right, can we send them home? Hey, Ron.
You didn't know you were paying that.
Have a good night.
Look at all the support.
Thank
You
you.
still have support. Look at these guys.
Yes.
They had your back.
I paid.
Yeah.
Alrighty, just so everybody is aware, this is our last one naturally. We have, Terry is looking at the, what do you call that list when you go back from the referendum, working the way back to see, you know, how we have to, oh, back planning, sorry, there we go. Is doing the back planning to find out how much, right, how late we can go before we have to vote on this, and that's why, if you notice when I sent the thing out, it's kind of like, we're gonna probably add, what date I put it in, but the 12th we will definitely be voting. And
On the
so-
12th of April?
Yes. Because that was an issue, that's an off week for us.
Right.
But the week after that, school vacation. And so, so we'll see where we get with, deliberations.
Mr. Howell.
Should I,
I don't know if we'll get. I was just going to say, well, those of us that went to the tech thing, that was awesome, by the way. And I
Oh,
did,
the library.
Oh, the library.
so I didn't mean to
librarian,
change
though.
subjects,
Yeah, the
but
high school. I'm sorry.
wouldn't it be great if we had a couple of them? I know everybody couldn't come and do a presentation for those who couldn't make it to that.
So you're gonna say something.
Make sure I wasn't shocked like that would have been. I think yes, and something else that we've also talked about is during a future district staff development day, because that particular session, which was our bagels and bites, solved two things. One is we had a chance to get everybody fed, but while they were being fed, also do our technology staff development. So we were able to double up on that time. I think it'd actually be a great thing to do, because I know that both Drew and Randy have teachers that are doing some amazing things, and I'd like to actually look for a way to meet with both schools to get multiple teachers together to say, what is it that you're doing? And maybe we do it on a half day during a lunchtime or something like that, where it's an opportunity to get that personalized staff development. But I think it would be a great idea. But also, it would be difficult to replicate here.
Right.
But if the board were to hold a meeting off-site,
did anybody videotape it?
I don't believe so. But if the board was willing to do a session off-site, we'd be happy to host a board meeting in the Wyndham High School Library.
Oh, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
And
it would be too hard to take because
Yeah, Janie was
it
there
was
and Marge
segmented.
was.
You know what I mean?
there, but it
Everybody
was-
had something different.
I think it would help. I think it helps.
It would've been-
Well, even helps Bob, because it shows the value of technology and how we need to get behind that.
And the different ways you can use it.
Yeah.
Multiple,
Yeah.
multiple.
All right. Sorry. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm back to timing. So this is what I've been wrestling in my small little mind. We finished all the presentations. We have a conundrum because right now our budget's at 6%. 6.4. 6 point whatever.
We're going to lose 2% on insurance. That's going to drop 2%.
Well, if you
Right,
read
but it wasn't
Don's
huge.
letter,
We're right now still at
it's
6.4.
still at
Yeah, 6.4.
So I'm a process gal. So if we come next week and we decide that, first of all, we don't know what the state's going to be doing. You're going to send a letter out. One of the things that I want to know is, when would Augusta decide? Because we likely will have to vote on this budget without knowing. That's pretty big.
Right.
It's
Given this
huge.
budget, it's huge. And so, coming next week, what I don't want to happen is this. I don't want to get there next week and we look at the 6, we're like, we know we need it, but it's not realistic to put it forth. So we would like to see what I mean, even this is high, a 4%. What does a 4% look like? and what would be cut? What additional cuts would there be? We've got to have a talking point. We can't just come in next week and say,
I don't like it.
I don't like it. I need to know what that means and what is cut, because what I don't want to do is come in, say that next week at the meeting, and then get the information on the 12th and vote on the same night. Because that just doesn't, it just doesn't feel good to me. So I don't know whether, and this is just me because I'm just wrestling with this process and putting forth this budget. I need to know if we have to go lower, what does that mean? If we, and I don't know whether you have crafted anything.
We have. What date are we giving the presentation?
What? I'm sorry.
What date are we giving?
May 24th. Are you talking to that we're voting on
at the high school?
At the high school, May 24th.
And Terry is doing a back thing to see how far we can.
That's right, because we got to do the warrant. There's all these steps that we have to do.
Stuff that has to happen, and it's all timed out. So tell me what your thoughts are.
I think if that's your wish, then we will get the 18 together this week and begin to look at what 4%.
Because they're going to need time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only one voice, but I know that I'm really wrestling with 6% going forward. And so I would want to know, and maybe we need some kind of consensus tonight. I don't know. What does a 4% look like? What does a 3%? Whatever it is, if it's one scenario or two scenarios, we need to know what that is.
And we can do that.
So
I don't mean we can do that.
Does that
we
make
can
sense
do,
to
we
people?
can,
I think it makes
does.
perfect sense.
it does, but we also need to, are we just going to take to the public and say, here's a percentage, here's a percentage, what does that represent? I want to know what that represents. And I know that's what you're trying to get at in some way, but why are we at 6% today in a not so perfect world? Why are we at 6%? What are the reasons?
Know why.
We all know why.
Right, but the public doesn't. And that's the concern you have.
Well, no, we didn't televise that.
That's the concern you have about. But that's the concern you have about the percentage. Is the public? How are we educating them besides having a televised? What are we doing to
I
get
guess
that message out?
philosophically, we have to decide as a board: are we okay with trying to do due diligence and educate the board or educate the public? Do we have the capability to educate the public so they understand what a 6% is? And even if we do a good job, will they buy it?
Right.
You guys have to kind of lead us though, because I've never been through that situation where if there's going to be a no vote. So you
We've
guys
never had a no vote.
Okay.
We haven't.
Okay.
It's never been this high.
So it's time we try it. No. Just
Now, we need to be prepared and look forward in the event that a 6.4 or whatever
contingency
is
plan.
not palatable to the public. We need to be prepared. Where
I think she's right that way. I definitely do.
where we're going to cut.
But I don't know why we wouldn't want to try to sell our position.
Right. I get what you're saying.
Right.
So yeah, we need to have that backup plan, but we also have to show them what we're getting.
Right. Because if I say you want 6, you want 4, I'm taking 4.
Right.
But
well,
we're not.
Yeah, but we don't go.
What do we lose it for?
We're not going to go. The thing being is that option is not for the public. That option is for us. We have to come up with what we.
We're not giving the public different
That's right.
options.
Yeah, they don't have to
But
be
it
dead.
would be really beneficial as somebody who's only been doing this for a couple of months and has never gone through this budget stuff. In fact, probably avoided it like the plague. If we could, some talking points, like this is how we can explain to my neighbor next door why I'm asking them for such an increase.
To your point, we do that. We have a cover sheet once we have the final explaining your budget. How much increase is for health, how much is for salary, like this whole administration, if that flies, which I'm hearing that there's not a lot of support for, but we don't know. If that were still included or taken out, I mean, all of the talking points are there.
Good.
So you're not like flying by the seat of your pants. Right?
I would start passing out other people's numbers. That's this person. I'll let you know.
Okay.
All right. So just so we have some kind of an idea, so Sandy knows what he's leaving here with. So
4%.
I don't know.
For
I'm
one,
just
I think
fair.
I think a fair is a 4. A fair is 4. A 4 is I think a 4 is fair. That's kind of what that was my thought earlier when I talked to Dawn.
I mean, we've never had one that high.
Because personally,
4 is still the highest that
Right.
would ever.
4 would be high for
Right?
us.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was always what, 3.5, 3.8.
It's somewhere always around there.
Right.
But it's oh,
It's always
definitely.
less than four.
Always.
Well, in his presentation, he showed us the years of where we were.
Yeah.
There's so many unknowns still, though. I mean, the good news is the education committee voted pretty much not to go with the proposed budget, so it goes to appropriations now. Once we know more about the budget,
But when are we
well,
going
we
to
can't
know?
wait.
There's
the
no
problem is
timeline on
we
that.
never-
We have to do our homework, but hopefully.
They never vote before we do.
I mean, in all actuality,
They don't.
having the information, if we use the 4, if everybody's comfortable with 4, I mean, it's atrocious. I can't even imagine what that would look like. But okay, now we meet next week. Okay, guys, now you're down to 4. These are all the things that you would have to cut.
Right.
And we might say,
Yeah.
it's disgusting. We can't do it. And maybe we go back to 6. But I have to know what that
Okay.
looks like
I'm with you.
Yeah.
before we do that.
And I think it'd help, and I think it would cut down our process of like, because we get into a space where, I mean, that we're talking about a week from now, so we lose a week to look at something that we already know now.
If we
and
have
we
to
don't know where
vote
to go.
on the
Right.
12th, we have to know next week.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't give them very much time, but I can't in good conscience get that information on the 12th and vote on the same night.
Yeah. But just so you know, that the main reason that Terry's doing that to see
Can
does
we
that
vote
have,
later?
yes, can we vote later? I want to find, she's looking to see what is the late, I don't either, but I said, what is the latest we can vote? What's the drop dead date? Because the thing being is, it's back to that time again, because now they've got to get all of the 18 together. You know what I mean? So it's not just as simple as him and Dawn going and, getting together.
The other piece that I'm muddled about is if we, and this is probably a legislature, or maybe you know the answer, I don't know. Okay, let me see how this works. We are assuming that administration has taken all that jazz, the 6.4, all the stuff that we now have to pay for that we never had to, is put back in, but we've already voted on a budget based on the fact that you see what I'm saying?
One heck of a general fund.
Well, I should know this and I don't, but
There was a new law passed.
We can change it.
and I just need to know what that is.
That was last year. But I don't remember what our options were then with the money.
I need
There
to
was
be
like
clear
3
what that
options.
looks like if
You could
You
put part of
guys
it
know what I'm saying,
towards
right?
reducing taxes. I
Right.
remember
There was 3
that was one of
options.
them. You could put it towards
if the
reducing
money's put back
taxes.
into the EPS, but we've already voted on the basis that we had to pay for it, but now we don't. How does that work? What does that mean?
Because there was some money last year. Yeah.
And then my understanding is next week, before deliberations or during I don't know, it's kind of a separate piece, isn't it? That finance and facilities are going to meet before the meeting to talk about the maintenance
CIP,
improvement plan. I'm not going to use that because it's not important. And the capital improvement plan. And what that means for warrant articles, what we're asking. Because Bob, what did you say, 250? 250 for CIP, which are separate warrant articles that are outside of the budget that the public votes on. And we haven't determined those yet. And so the two committees are going to meet because they're kind of intertwined. And then my understanding is that that's going to be discussed on the 5th.
No.
Yes? When is it going to be discussed?
The week after.
12th?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm almost positive it was the 12th, mainly because there was so much on that agenda the only thing we left of bills on there was the middle school project and the bid for the Raymond Elementary. But the rest of his program updates, etc. I think we need to. Is there anything else before we?
Michelle, do you have anything?
Please text Drew if you do.
Please let Drew know. Anything from Michelle?
You don't want to know.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
It's my recollection that I dropped in last